Good morning. I am freshly back from my 2-week meditation retreat, and it was exactly what I needed in every way. And in this short talk today, am going to just share a little bit about the main teachings that I was working with while I was on retreat, and a little bit about my experience. I invite those of you who are tuned in live to ask questions, any questions at all, any curiosities you've had about what I've been up to, and any questions about the teachings I'm going to share today, which are both very deep teachings and also, in many ways, very, very, very simple teachings. First of all, thank you to those of you who made this possible. A lot, really, as my teacher says, when one thing happens, everything in the universe has to conspire to make it possible. And yet there are also certain individuals that really do a little extra to make things like this possible. And some of you are here live. Thank you so much to those of you who hosted while I was gone. Pamela, John Samuel, Pam, Theta, Lee, Holly, and some of those folks are also on double duty, helping make sure that new members could get welcomed in and settled into Nowhere Village. And it means everything to me that I knew that you were all taking care of each other and taking care of the space, and I felt very held. I felt very held by all of you. So that's first of all. I also want to give a shout out to Sandy Griffith, who is a dear friend of mine, who's also in Nowhere Village as a member. She's a founding member. She doesn't come to the morning sessions usually, but she was actually providing me with food while I was in retreat, coming and checking on me, and she actually ended up spending a few of the days actually doing the practices with me. We didn't speak, but she just kept the meditation schedule with me, and then did her own thing in the interim and did her own retreat. And that was actually really kind of structuring and grounding and bolstering when she was here. I was a little nervous. Well, I want somebody else here, but it was perfect for a little bit of the time. And yes, so that's the first off. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that I will be unpacking the experiences that I've had, and speaking from and teaching from my retreat until my next retreat, you know. And so a great temptation for someone like me is to try to come up with, part of me wanted today's talk to be this, to give you the whole picture and share with you the most complete version of this experience that I possibly could, and to give the most perfect post-retreat talk. And very, very much what I'm working with right now is letting go, especially around a lot of my ideas about work and career and, dare I say, art, what I create and put into the world. I have for so long really identified that as me. Like, this talk is me. It's a reflection of everything that I am and everything I'm trying to prove about myself. And a lot of what I started seeing right at the beginning of retreat was how much suffering this way of looking at my work causes for me. And so, another kind of truism about retreat, besides the like, there's lots of them, but I basically teach from retreat to retreat, that like all the wisdom that I teach between one and the other is from the previous one. Another truism about retreat is that retreat doesn't end when your last meditation of retreat ends. In fact, in many ways, I feel like, and I'm so grateful to myself for giving myself this week of kind of a light teaching schedule, and just I've been trying to keep spaciousness in my days, but the integration process is very, very much part of the retreat. So you have all these experiences and revelations, and then, while you don't have to show up to work, while you don't have to deal with other people, while you don't have to be in situations where your ego, naturally opens up and says, hey, I want to get in there. Those experiences start to come up again when you come out of retreat, of course. And so that's what's been happening the last few days. And in preparing for this talk, had to catch myself many times. I could feel that ego rising. I could feel that sense of attachment to success and attachment to the pleasures of success, attachment to stories about myself and my worth. And when I would feel them coming, because I spent all this time being so quiet and really learning what it feels like to be in my body, what it feels like to be this person, with this personality all the time, to be awareness in that way. I have in these past few days been able to be aware as this is all coming up. And as I was really getting deep into it yesterday, and was like starting to get like scrambling into catching up on emails, and getting back into this approach to my schedule and my day and my time. Yesterday, we ended up having, I guess it was our experience of that tropical storm. But we had a huge storm here yesterday, and I lost power. I didn't have power from 1:30 p.m. till about 10 last night. I actually didn't know if this was going to happen this morning. And my plan for yesterday was to catch up on all the online stuff. I was going to write all of you who had made offerings while I was away, and thank you personally, and we'll have to do that today. And I was going to sit down and I was going to hash out this talk, and I was going to plug in all of the quotes, and Spirit said, no, you're not. we're just gonna, put that fire out with this rain and wind, and I did my meditation schedule yesterday, and did projects here, and then had dinner with a friend because I didn't have running water or electricity. So this talk is not this complete, ultimate, perfect talk, but it is a perfect talk. It'll be a perfect talk because it'll be about the things that feel right now like the most important things to share with you about my experience. And because I don't know where your consciousness is, or where your heart is, or your body is, but I know that because we are connected, because this whole world thing is a dialogue, that you will call out of me the talk that you need to hear. And so it'll be perfect. So So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get into the teachings that really feel the most important to me right now, and that I was working with the most deeply. I do also want to share with you about the sort of nuts and bolts of the retreat, because a lot of in my reintegration period, I've made a point to spend time with some good friends who could really kind of help me unpack and talk about this. And people are really curious, I find, about the actual like details of retreat and how I did it. And I love sharing about that, and I'm really happy to. And I could do at the end of the talk, I could share more about it, and all the many times we'll hang out in the future. But I think I want to go ahead and just talk about the teachings themselves, or the Dharma, the wisdom itself that I'm working with. Important to give a huge, huge shout out to really all of my teachers. But I was sitting very strongly with Nisargadatta in this time. And I know I originally said I was going to study the Yoga Sutras, and I started to, and it felt really cerebral as I was working with it. And it wasn't engaging my heart, and I could tell that it was stirring up the ego self, the Aaron being the good student self, this self that has given me a lot of pride and pleasure, but has also given me a lot of anxiety and shame. And it's a part of my personality that has been really hard to let go of, because I have associated it with success. And so I could tell that there was something kind of pleasing to me about it in a way that wasn't going to help me on my retreat. And that spending time with Nisargadatta felt just more like there was something hungry for it, but she wasn't trying to master it. She wasn't trying to be superior at it. That's what it is. Mastery, I think, is fine. But with the Sanskrit, I'm also in a Sanskrit course right now with these other students who are really brilliant, and I'm like competitive with them. So I found myself switching to the one text that I let myself read was I Am That by Nisargadatta. And so much of the teachings that I was working with are, of course, teachings that had already been in my consciousness, but his words really kind of reverberated through my retreat as sort of touchstones as I worked with these teachings. So I've been talking already with you guys a lot about a lot of this stuff, the way that pleasure and pain actually go together, sukha and dukkha, the ways that success and failure actually go together, punya and apunya. Right? We learn to walk by falling a bunch, or it's the falling failure. And I have been able to watch in my meditations for these past few years that profound truth. And it was really helpful right at the beginning of retreat to come in having been talking about all of that, and seeing for myself that in the past, in meditation retreats and in past experiences of this, I would find myself pushing away dukkha and apunya, meaning pushing away anything that felt like, or trying to avoid anything that felt like discomfort, and anything that felt like failure. And then my whole MO was sort of trying to avoid that. And then I was trying to cling to what felt pleasant, pleasurable, and what felt like success. And so in the past, a good meditation or a good day on my meditation retreat would be, I felt really good. I ate the right foods. I must have done the right thing and slept the exact right amount. And I must have, I was like trying to curate this day where there was all sukha and punya. I was that successful Aaron. I was the there's a whole persona I started to realize. There's so many ways of thinking about it or looking at it, but this worked for me like a version of Aaron who's like the pure Aaron. And that a good spiritual experience was when only pure Aaron was there. And the one who has a pain in her hip and a, anger in her belly and a regret in her heart and, spinning thoughts in her mind. We got to get her out of here, right? If we want to have a good meditation, she's got to be gone. And so helpful right off the bat coming in and seeing that can't be quite right. And seeing that my attachment to that perfect persona is exactly, in many ways, what I'm here to deal with. And so and then here we go, Nisargadatta. So Nisargadatta talks a lot about this as well, about the pleasure, pain, being together, the attachment to all of that. And one of the quotes said something. Actually, I was trying to look up all these quotes, and it's like, Aaron, they're just kind of in you, and you can misquote them, and I can get you guys the exact quotes later. But, he said, all of the suffering is caused by that trying to push away the pain, cling to the pleasure. And that it comes from this idea of me and mine. That we're looking for the I am. We're looking for our beingness. We're looking for our power. We're looking for what lasts, which is our awareness, our divinity. But along the way, we mistake that for the separate self, sometimes called the ego, the me. And then the me then wants what's mine. And it wants to reject what's not mine. And then here's this really important concept that again came through Nisargadatta really early on, that helped me deal with this while I was in meditation and throughout the day. Well, I mean, first of all, the first most helpful thing is the I am. It's just seeing that, this is important. The I am cannot be anything that it perceives. And so look for yourself. Let's just take a second. I'm going to take a second before I go into this other part of the teaching, because this is really important. And I'm kind of skipping over it because I think I've been practicing it so deeply that I'm now not as conscious of it. But this is really important. Okay. You. Looking at you. Take a moment, maybe close your eyes, take a breath, go inward. Are you real? Do you exist? Everything around seems to be changing from moment to moment. But do you exist? If so, why do you think that? Why do you believe that? Why does that seem like it's true? I am. You are. Why? And at some point, I would love to play. We could practice an actual inquiry dialogue back and forth. Maybe if we have time at the end of this talk, somebody wants to play this with me. And we can go through whatever comes up for you. But there is and you can open your eyes if you want, but there's a sense of continuity that has been with you your whole life, correct? You were there at your birth. You're going to be there at your death. In that span of time, you look complete, your baby self and whatever the body looks like on at the end, it's changed. From the outside, it looks like is that the same? That's the same? No, it's not. The body isn't the same. Something's the same. Is your mind the same? My mind's not the same as it was 2 weeks ago. Whew, thankfully. It feels very different in my cerebral landscape. My life, guys, my life 2 years ago, totally different. And yet I feel like I'm still Aaron. And we can get into the continuity of memory. There's some interesting philosophical stuff and arguments we could have in there. Is it just memory? We could look at that. But there's something else besides memory. And look, you don't remember everything. Do you remember what you ate a month ago on Wednesday morning after my talk? Right? We could maybe try to recreate it and maybe, but we don't have to recreate that to prove to you that you exist and that you were there for breakfast 30 days ago. You just know you were because of I am. The feeling of being, the awareness that you are. Okay, so when we meditate and when we're doing these practices, we are acknowledging, we've been acknowledging all of our accomplishments and failures. We've been acknowledging, that beautiful vacation that I had, or that time that I had a perfect meditation. This is the stuff of life. Coming back into the I am, it's a root. It's not actually the end. The end would be something like being pure awareness. We could talk more about that. But the way the I am is like the portal, the doorway into understanding the parts of you that are not things, that aren't stuff, and the parts of you that are not being created and destroyed constantly. The part of you that is in a way that the stuff of life is not. And so, sitting in meditation 5 times a day, every day during retreat, I was just practicing as simply as possible, feeling I amness. And then noticing how, again and again, how many times did this happen? 1 trillion times over 2 weeks? I don't know. How many times did I get a little attached to a story, to an idea, and every time I let it go and tried to fall back into the I amness. Every time I said the Sanskrit phrase neti neti, neti neti, not that, not that, not that, I'm not that, not that. And I happened to have a lot of body pain while I was on this retreat, which I just have in my life now in the last few years. And I normally have ways of distracting myself, and I normally have, instead I just sat with it. And in the past, again, I would have said, oh, this is this just means I'm having a bad retreat. No, awareness wasn't, there's nothing wrong with my awareness. That's what's meditating. That's what's living. That's what is. And so, what keeps us from being able to just be awareness? Affectionately, you know, with interest, experiencing this world. What keeps me from that is going back to Nisargadatta's teaching, the me and the mine. This comes up in the Yoga Sutras too. The one thought that leads to all the other chitta vritti is I am separate. And then this piece, really helpful for me. So Nisargadatta says, once we have the me and the mine, we try to use everything. Again, this isn't a direct quote, but he basically says that the false self sees a world of things to be used for its own agendas. The true self, loving awareness, fulfills everything. Rather than trying to utilize it, it lets it be what it is. He says everything exists for its own sake. And so we're making this grand mistake every time that we try to use anything in this life for something else, for something it's not. And that was something that ended up being this really, really, really important touchstone for me, is how am I trying to use this? Is there anything I'm trying to use right now? And I'm going to be teaching more about this. I'm going to be talking more about this in coming days and weeks. So I'm not gonna exhaust it at this moment, but I see now that I've spent most of my life using, or at least since my identities started hardening, like starting around adolescence, really, and then even more so, I think in these last, it's been really interesting. It's been about 10 years since I've been on this particular career path. It's been about 10 years since I've been like really deeply doing my spiritual work, and seeing how much I've had this spiritual persona that got kind of hardened. And now when I first started doing this, I loved it so much because it felt like I was shedding false personas. But then here comes this like pure, perfect Erin, who's got to be a leader for others. And then, and so the shoulds around who I was supposed to be became in some ways like way harder and louder and more dangerous, frankly, more alluring than the false personas that I shed at the end of my 20s. And I was just like working in restaurants and trying to be an actor and drinking way too much and, definitely wasn't sitting around thinking about the truth of reality all the time. Now. But in some ways, like she held those personas, she wasn't really that fond of them. And so she was like pretty, it was like she held them pretty lightly and like didn't take herself super seriously. And then there's this version of Erin that has taken herself very seriously in a way that ended up becoming very sticky and attached. You know, another little quote from Nisargadatta that just kept coming through my consciousness and kind of saving me in moments was, "Whatever pleases you keeps you back." If you're really, you're really pleased with where you are right now, you're not going to get up and move forward. If you're really captivated by what a great job you're doing or how nice this feels, that's where you're going to be attached. And then all of your pushing away, all of the resistance is going to be toward anything that threatens that. You're then protecting that. The thing, this was a revelation. I almost felt like I had like 4 different retreats because it was longer than any retreat I've done. So grateful for the length of time. Felt like the realizations kind of came in waves. But anyway, the first wave, like really early on, I was contemplating this thing about using. And what am I using things for? Toward getting more pleasure, getting more success, I'm using it toward getting less dukkha, like less discomfort and less failures, right? That's my agenda in a nutshell. That's my agenda. And then I'm using everything in reality, pushing it around, manipulating it in order to achieve my goal, my personal ambition. And I could see how I have used other people. I require other people. I have required other people to validate me, to make me feel successful. Somebody else has to see it and show it back to me, put an A on it, whatever it is. My whole life, I've had beings in my world that have given me that. I have been, which, those exchanges and like exchanging applause and, appreciating each other is beautiful. But what I'm saying is the suffering has come from me trying to like extract that validation from others. My whole last relationship was also wrapped up in this version of a successful woman's life, right? Where she had the partner and I was going to have the kids and I was going to have the career and I was going to have all the stuff that when I looked around, I said, oh, that seems to be what I'm supposed to have. I loved my ex-partner very much. I'm a loving person. I love people. I loved him, but also kind of used him. There's a truth to that too. From the day I saw him, he would be a really good fit for that role. I've been writing this script for my future, for my perfect future, and he looks really castable. Different than like the moments when we're really authentically connecting with someone. It's different to be up in this little controller place and manipulating the people around you. Again, I wasn't conscious of it. I don't have shame about this right now. I've been using my skills, right? I've been using I'm really organized. I'm a really good planner. Guys, what I realized early on this retreat, I spend so much time planning the future. And just because I'm good at it doesn't mean that it's always the right thing for my mind to be doing and for me to be engaging with. That was a huge amount of what I had to let go of on the retreat. I abuse, I use my skill of organization in times when it's not necessary. All of my skills and talents, right? I have been using. There's a lot more. Well, it's a lot more I've been using. There's a lot more that I could say, but here's the thing I want to end with, and this is a revelation that I think maybe has helped me the most as I've come out of retreat. I have been using time. I have been trying to wring out of time the preciousness of life. I have been trying to cram into time all of these assignments for myself. This was all of these things to do. And before I started this retreat, I was feeling really overwhelmed. I was feeling, I have been for a while, feeling really overworked and unable to catch up. And the description I sometimes have used is feeling like there's wolves at my back, like there's always something chasing after me. And I could chalk it up to, financial instability, which is true. I've been really stressed out since leaving my pretty well off ex partner and trying to make it on my own. I could say, oh, but Nowhere Village and all the things that need to happen there and all the, like my ambitions around my offering. Okay. There's a little truth to these things. There are these needs we have. There are these things we want to accomplish. But my relationship with time, the way that I was trying to use time, is a thing that just needed to get looked at completely on its own. And so that was the gift of retreat, to put down all these other things. They're just not important for 2 weeks. Those aren't important. And so we can look at these really, really basic relationships that we're in all day long. And I could see how abusive my relationship was with time. And this is the last thing I say. So if you have a question, go ahead and type it in. Is just to say with great gratitude that relationship has shifted and was shifting during the retreat. And often the last day of retreat, I try to meditate like more and harder. This has been my past. I'm like, Aaron, it's your last day. Okay, this is it. You're gonna get enlightened. Okay, you're gonna have this awakening. You gotta just go for it. And this retreat, I didn't do that. I did the barley seed method of going in gentle, getting fat and intense in the middle, and then coming out gentle. And I actually de-escalated my meditations in the last few days so that I wasn't just like thrust back out into this reality where I was just doing everything really intense. So, and I could feel on that last day that old Aaron being like, what more can you get out of this? What more can you get out of this? It's almost over. And yeah, letting that go. I Oh, I've got a question. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna go to the question, and then I'm gonna close just telling you guys a little bit about what I envision coming up for the next few weeks there. So Sveta says, the notion of using is very intriguing for me. It rings true, and I'm curious to explore it more. The distinction between tyrant time versus power time, oh, interesting, was something we talked about and contemplated at the group program that I led. It sounds familiar to what you're explaining. I can totally relate to it as well. And you feel so much more calm now. Thanks. Oh, I'm glad you could feel it. Yeah, I think that that's actually a great, I like that. I mean, you and I, Sveta, can chat more. I'd love to hear more about the way that you presented it in your group program. You can also relate to being overly serious. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it from you at some point, but that sounds pretty spot on. Or they sound like really good descriptors for what I'm talking about. Yeah, the illusion of agency actually is a big theme, or a certain version of agency. I think that's what it is. It's an illusion of control that the tyrant has. Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, the what's really key, what's been really key and really helpful, is being able to let go of all of it. I think we don't want to let go of the tyrant, or we don't want to let go. I didn't want to let go of the planner and the organizer, because I was afraid that by letting go of her, I let go of my power. And so through meditation, I have, and some other practices and experiences in my life, and some shamanic practices really helped with this actually. But through meditation, the main way that I've experienced this, stomach's rumbling. Through meditation is the main way that I've experienced this is, okay, I really don't want to let this go, but I'm just gonna try. And I let it go, and I find, oh, my power is actually still here, even though I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing the thing that pleased me. I'm not doing the thing that I felt good at. I'm not doing the thing that I had given this assignment of being the powerful part of my personality, that persona. And so by letting go of the tyrant, and we see, oh, the tyrant isn't actually the source of power. Same with, I mean, gosh, there's so much that I could talk about. I looked a lot at attachments to people, but also to substances and foods, and like all the things that I'm attached to. And it's the same kind of thing. It's seeing like, oh, if I don't have that for 2 weeks, I'm okay. So the goodness, the power, the love, the comfort, the joy, none of that was in any of this other stuff. The power, the joy, the comfort, the bliss, the realness was always already here as the self. And realizing that is freedom. Well, I want to wrap it up. If there's one more question, I would take it. Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that more, Sveta. Definitely. And it's so true. You're exactly right. We understand these things intellectually, and then we do have to learn how to embody it. Shamanic practices are great, and we can talk more about that, but I'll just close up then by talking really practically with you about what worked for me while I was on retreat in terms of internalizing it and embodying it. That comes through abhyasa, repetition, right? And so what I was doing was just staying with the feeling of I am. I sometimes use the mantra. I used to use Soham. I found myself just wanting to use the English phrase I am. when I wanted to use a mantra, but mostly I was with feeling and just being as present and as simple as I could. And then the real practice is actually stuff arises, and some of the stuff that arises doesn't grab me, but something will grab me. It'll either be a pleasure or a pain. Something will grab me and I'll either go, I don't want that feeling in my hip, or oh yeah, that's going to be so good when I become enlightened, and then I do this and then I do that, right? One feels unpleasant, one feels pleasant, but it's the same thing that happens, and it's the attachment. So in that moment, I also have techniques. One is just physically softening. And then the other, this is actually a line from a poem that I memorized years ago, a Rilke poem that I love. The breezes. Oh, but the breezes and the spaces. And that was it just came to me at the beginning of retreat, and I used it the whole time, and I'm using it now. But what I would do is basically say that and imagine space around whatever I was attaching to. This idea of Aaron, the literal physical feeling in my hips, I would imagine surrounded by space, by aware space that breeze could go through. And I will happily talk more about all of the practicalities and technique of any of this stuff with any of you, but I just recommend that you find your own, through abhyasa and practice, you will find your own things that work for you. And then maybe you'll find new ones, but find little ways. But the practice itself is really simple. Stay with I am, let go of the rest. Okay, I'm gonna sign off here, but I'm gonna post for you guys about potential schedule for the rest of August, where we do a little bit more than we did this week. And I will be inviting some of you to continue or to step up from time to time, maybe, and offer silent meditations or other offerings. And I feel so rejuvenated. I feel like my approach to my whole life, and certainly to Nowhere Village, which is this heart project for me, I feel like my approach to all of it has been sort of like rinsed and clarified, and so I can really be back in just the love of it and the love of all of you, back to the real, you know. I know there's tons more work ahead, and I can feel myself, bumping up against all the old conditioning and hanging out with some of those old personas, but I do feel different. I feel changed. I feel like I have properly shed some things, so that as I move forward into the obstacles ahead, I'll be able to navigate them a little more breezily, a little more lightly. And these practices work, guys. Our teachers are wise. The world is beautiful, and we have each other. I think it's going to be okay.